President, a federal judge said tonight that the administration has to fully fund SNAP. It's the latest in the back and forth, and the Justice Department said they're going to appeal it. What's your message to folks as they work this out in the courts and in Congress as we're heading into Thanksgiving?
You want to go with it?
Yeah, look, Jackie, it's an absurd ruling because you have a federal judge effectively telling us what we have to do in the midst of a Democrat government shutdown, which what we'd like to do is for the Democrats to open up the government. Of course, then we can fund SNAP, and we can also do a lot of other good things for the American people. But in the midst of a shutdown, we can't have a federal court telling the president how he has to triage the situation. We're trying to keep as much turned on. We're trying to keep as much going as possible. The president and the entire administration are working on that, but we're not going to do it under the orders of a federal judge. We're going to do it according to what we think we have to do to comply with the law, of course, but also to actually make the government work for people in the midst of the Democrat government shutdown. If they would like to end this, we would welcome working with them to end this government shutdown, and then we wouldn't have to triage what we're going to fund and what we're not going to fund. And the last thing that I'll say is the American people are unfortunately about to start suffering some very real consequences because of the shutdown. In the past, when you had a government shutdown, you would have under the Obama administration, they would lean into all of the problems it was going to cause for the American people at the beginning of the shutdown. The president has told us to keep as much going as humanly possible, but after 30 days of this thing, 40 days of this thing, you're going to start seeing very real travel delays. That's because the Democrat government shut down. You're going to start seeing SNAP benefits run out. That's because the Democrat government shut down. They should stop this charade and open up the government. That's what we want them to do. We've been asking them to do it for 40 days. It's time.
And one other thing, our country has to remain very liquid because problems, catastrophes, wars, could be anything. We have to remain liquid. We can't give everything away based on a number. Here's an example. When I was president, the number that you're talking about was a tiny fraction of what it is now. Biden went totally crazy, gave it to anybody that would ask, gave it to people that were able-bodied, had no problem. Anybody that would ask, we get the number. And it's many times the number of people are on. This wasn't meant for that. It was meant for people that had real problems, in many cases people that were down and out, people that could be saved. It wasn't meant for people that could do whatever they want, the people that say, well, I don't think I'll work, I'll just, collect this money. Take a look at the number of what it was during my administration and what it was during the Biden administration. It went up many, many times my first term.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about another bombshell. Insane ruling from woke District Judge John McConnell from Rhode Island, who was appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, okay, as he is now demanding the Trump administration, demanding that they pay out all of the reserves that the USDA has for food stamps because Democrats have shut down the government. They are holding the country hostage in order to virtue signal to the far left and in order to motivate their voters, their very ignorant voters. Let me actually be very, very, very clear. They're ignorant as hell voters to get out and to vote against Trump because of Democrats blaming the shutdown on Trump, even though they're the ones that shut down the government. I want you guys to understand how diabolical the Democrats are, right? And this is what's kind of pissing me off about this whole shutdown thing, right? Again, food stamps. The reason why food stamps are getting cut off is because Democrats decided to shut down the government, okay? They're not voting for a clean resolution that they voted for like 3 or 4 times before the pass, right? The same spending levels as Joe Biden. Republicans aren't even cutting spending, okay? But they're claiming that, well, we're holding out because we want the Obamacare subsidies extended. Here's the problem with that argument. First and foremost, Obamacare, which was passed by Democrats, has made healthcare unaffordable. The reason why you need the subsidies in the first place to make it quote unquote affordable is because it's not affordable. It's not sustainable under Obamacare. Okay. During the pandemic, Democrats allowed a bunch of illegals and a bunch of people who refused to work on the system. That put more strain on an already failing system of Obamacare. So guess what? Democrats put a Band-Aid on it by saying, we're going to provide these subsidies, right? In order to cover up the cost, right? Lo and behold, Democrats, because they decided that they wanted to put a time limit on the subsidies, an expiration date on the subsidies are expiring because Democrats they literally voted for the subsidies to expire, right? They voted for the subsidies to expire. And they're now pointing the finger at the Trump administration because of subsidies that they voted to have expired. Again, it blows my mind because this is the most diabolical thing I've ever seen in politics. They've shut down the government. They're blaming it on Trump. Workers aren't being paid. Federal workers aren't being paid. Liquidity is drying up. You're starting to see it in the markets, right? The markets are literally tanking because the government's not spending any more money. You have, again, SNAP benefits running out. If we go another month, you're going to have Section 8. That's going to start running out. Planes are crashing. I mean, we literally had a UPS plane crash, okay, as airports are shutting down operations, right? They're literally saying, hey, we're not going to have some flights. We're not going to be able to operate in some parts of the country because we don't have funding. People aren't being paid.
The FAA is slashing air traffic by 10% at 40 airports across the country starting Friday. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's announcement coming this afternoon as air traffic control and TSA staffing shortages continue to cause massive backups at major airports nationwide.
I anticipate there will be additional disruptions. There will be frustration. We are working with the airlines. They're going to work with passengers. But in the end, our sole role is to make sure that we keep this airspace as safe as possible.
This as the Trump administration and the government shutdown causing the issues hit a record-breaking 36 days today. The government shutdown making it the longest shutdown of all time.
Let's go to Dan McCabe now, Southern Regional Vice President at the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. Dan, I really appreciate your time, and obviously you're an air traffic controller yourself. What are you hearing from all of the air traffic controllers? You know, what they're doing when they do go to work, what it's even like, how they even find out when it turns out other people aren't coming in?
Thanks for having me, Aaron. It is unimaginably tough right now for controllers, and I've talked to a few today. Every day, it seems like there's a new story. The problem is you don't know where anyone's breaking point is at. And I mean financial breaking point, or where they just get to the hopeless piece of, I don't know what to do. They're upset. They feel like pawns. They feel like they're in the middle of a fight that's not theirs. It's partisan politics, and we're stuck in the middle of it. The problem here, though, is everybody has got adult responsibilities. You may have childcare or a house or an apartment or a car. And they spend their time when they're not at work worrying about how long can I stretch this out? What things do I have to start cutting out of my life? Am I going to get evicted next month? I mean, I had a phone call today of someone who is on the verge of being evicted from an apartment. And this is someone who is a brand new air traffic controller. And this is their welcome to your new career moment.
You have people discovering that, oh, my premiums are about to triple and quadruple. Again, because of the fact that Democrats, one, passed Obamacare in the first place, which made healthcare unaffordable in this country. But the subsidies that they use in order to cover up the fact that their signature policy is a complete and total disaster, are expiring because of the decision that Democrats made. They used all of that. They used what they did. And they blamed it on Trump. And it worked. It worked because I think part of what you saw from voters just a couple days ago, right, during these off-season elections, is the fact that people are upset and they're blaming what Democrats did. Everything that's Democrats' fault. They're blaming it on Trump. And that's why this is really starting to piss me off, because if you think about just how diabolical and just deceitful Democrats are being right now, how they're lying to the American people, they're blaming everything that's happening right now, things that they've caused, they're blaming it on Trump. And you got idiots out there that actually believe that somehow, some way, this is President Trump's fault, even though all of it is the fault of Democrats. All of it, right? Is literally because of decisions Democrats have made. This whole thing is literally because of Democrats. It's frustrating, right? It's frustrating. As somebody whose job is to educate people about this stuff, I just, for the life of me, cannot understand why is there not a revolt against the Democrats right now. There should be massive protests against Democrats right now. People should be calling their Democrat senators, their representatives, just ringing their phones off the hook, demanding that they open up the government, because they're literally destroying the country. They're trying to destroy everything to save their pathetic political party. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So anyways, right, on to the main topic of this video, food stamps. Once again, people have run out, right? Some people have run out, and they're having to get food from the food bank. And I just want you guys to watch this video, because it really tells you everything you need to know about the people, or some people, who are dependent on the government when it comes to food stamps. Just take a look at this video.
I didn't get my food stamps this month, and instead, this is what I'm supposed to survive off to feed my family. A bag of apples, a bag of oranges, tomato soup, oats, elbow macaroni, milk, peas, black beans, diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, peaches, more pinto beans, peanut butter, green beans, tuna, and this. So I'm supposed to feed my family for the entire month with what you see in this box. It's an absolute disgrace and a joke.
Yeah, so again, imagine living off the government, right? You're depending on the government for food. The government funds run out for your food, and you're complaining because you went to some food bank and you got food to eat, right? You're complaining, right? I think you should be grateful. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Other people are paying for your food. And if somebody's giving you food because the government food stamps are run out, you should be thankful for that food. You should be thankful that you can eat, right, at all, right? But again, the entitlement in this country is just off the charts. And because of the entitlement, people don't like when their entitlements go away, right? People get mad, they get upset when their government handouts go away, right? And that's why this is so frustrating, and it's really hard to be a conservative, because once you start taking away people's entitlements, you know, bad things happen, right? Politically speaking. And again, that brings me to the top of this video. The Trump administration said they were going to partially fund food stamps due to some woke judges ruling that the administration had to use the USDA emergency fund to fund the program while the Democrats keep the government shut down. Now, the issue is that the Trump administration initially did not appeal this. They said, okay, well, we're going to do it, but we're only going to do it partially. Now, the reason why they're only doing it partially is because they only have about a month's worth of funding, and they wanted to conserve some of the funding just in case the shutdown drags on for longer than a month, right? So that they could keep funding it, right? Because again, they only have so much money. The government is shut down. And now you have this woke judge saying, no, actually, you got to use all the funds right now, right? You can't use some of the funds this month or next month or whatever. You can't decide how the funds are used or when the funds go out. You got to use all the funds. You basically got to use all the emergency funds right now. That is what a federal judge just ruled. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
And we have breaking news to start up this hour of the lead. A federal judge ordering the Trump administration to fully fund SNAP or food stamp benefits for the 42 million Americans who rely on the food assistance program. In the month of November, amid what is now the longest government shutdown in the history of these United States, the administration has announced that they're going to appeal the ruling. The Trump administration is currently only partially funding the program through November from the nearly $5 billion emergency reserve it has been required to dip into. Let's go to CNN's Caitlin Collins at the White House. Caitlin?
Yeah, Jake, this is quite a ruling from this judge ordering the federal government to make these payments in full when it comes to these SNAP benefits for 42 million Americans who have kind of been left in the middle and the lurch of all of this, as there's been this dispute playing out inside the courtroom from groups that are suing the administration over not paying these benefits during this government shutdown. And something that stood out to me, Jake, is something the judge referenced in this decision today, in this ruling, saying that they must make these SNAP payments by Friday, by tomorrow, where he essentially pointed to something that the president said on Truth Social earlier this week after the administration was ordered to pay about half of the SNAP payments, what they had from that contingency fund that they had. That had created a lot of questions here during the White House briefing, Jake, where Caroline Leavitt was acknowledging the president's post, but essentially saying that they were still complying with the court order. Those were actually talking points that were sent up to Republicans on Capitol Hill. The judge took it very differently and saw it as basically a rebuke of his order to pay those SNAP payments. And he's warning here that if this does not happen, there are millions of Americans, elderly and disabled, who could go hungry without these benefits being paid off in full. And so that's the question here of what the administration is going to do next, Jake, because
again, the problem with this woke judge is that he's basically demanding the Trump administration just pay out all the funds at one time, right? $8-9 billion, just pay it out at one time. Now, what happens when these funds run out? Is the judge going to force Democrats to actually, agree to the continuing resolution? Because here's the thing. SNAP not being funded this month or SNAP running out puts pressure on Democrats to actually come to a deal. This is not the Trump administration holding out on the funds. No, it's Democrats holding out on the funds because they're the ones that decided to shut down the government, right? They're the ones that decided that there will be a lapse in funding because of their political priorities, because of them trying to rally their base of lunatics to get out and vote, right? That was the whole point. So when you have this judge stepping in, doing the dirty work for Democrats, essentially taking pressure off of them to actually negotiate, or put it this way, because it's not even a negotiation, taking pressure off of them to actually open up the government, again, you're just giving Democrats more and more leverage over the Trump administration. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. At the end of the day, Democrats need to face the consequences of what they did. They shut down the government. They're the ones that decided that, hey, people need to not eat to fight Trump, right? Don't eat. Don't travel, right? Don't get paid. So it's just frustrating because all of this is basically making it look like it's the Trump administration's fault for why this is happening, and it's not. Everything that's happening right now is literally the fault of Democrats. Democrats made all the decisions that led to this. But again, it looks, optically speaking, like it's the fault of the Trump administration and Republicans.
We are told that they are going to appeal this decision that came down from Judge McConnell today, but we haven't yet heard from the White House or from the Office of Management and Budget on this matter. And certainly it is something that is becoming a crisis point for so many Americans in this moment and in this government shutdown that, Jake, right now, as we are here tonight, yes, there's a lot of conversations happening on Capitol Hill, but right now still no end in sight to that government shutdown.
All right, Caitlin Collins at the White House with all the latest news. Thank you so much, and don't miss Caitlin on her show. Let's bring in Republican Senator Roger Marshall by the Trump administration to appeal this judge's ruling, the judge ordering the administration to fully fund SNAP benefits this month, and the Trump administration fighting that.
Well, look, Republicans want to get the SNAP benefits, and we've given the Democrats 13 times to vote to do just that. And even tomorrow, they're telling us they're going to vote against SNAP benefits once again. So I think that the Trump organization, the Trump administration, was going to use these $5 billion of emergency funds that were meant for disasters. The judge told them to use those, so they will. But beyond that, then who do we choose? You know, there's only a certain amount of money left. Do we not pay the troops? Do we not buy infant formula? Do we not pay for school lunches? What the real issue is here, my friends across the aisle need to come on back and fund the government again.
Yeah, that is the real issue. 100% that's the real issue. Now, the problem is that Democrats, because they see this as a political game, they've decided that they're going to do this in order to make it seem like they're strong, right? Because now after the election, now they're more willing to sit down and to maybe have a conversation about opening up the government. Ain't it funny how that works? But again, they are still coming to Republicans with these ridiculous demands that they know that Republicans are not going to agree to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movement right now, Dana, behind the scenes to try to reopen the government. There was a historically long government shutdown, 37 days, the longest ever in history, and the consequences piling up by the day for the American people, which means that the pressure really is on at this key moment. Democrats are weighing a deal that would reopen the government either until the end of this year or early next year, tied to a larger funding package for several agencies. But one of the key questions remains about whether Democrats will accept a vote to extend expiring Obamacare subsidies. Remember, that was at the heart of this dispute to begin with. They had said that those expiring subsidies must be dealt with as part of this negotiation, as part of this funding bill, because people will see their premiums increase, and it must be dealt with now. But what Republicans are offering is a separate vote not tied to the funding bill. The question is going to be if enough Democrats say, okay, fine, we have to vote to reopen the government, and we'll vote on this later, even though there's no commitment that separate health care vote could ultimately become law. I put that question to one of the key Democratic negotiators, Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire. I asked her about the Democratic concern from many of her colleagues about putting this to a separate vote and the potential that that could never become law.
If that can't pass, the ACA vote, then what do you say?
Well, it's not clear that it can't pass.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of Republicans who I've been talking to who think we need to address the issue.
But the Speaker's not committed to put it on the floor.
Well, I can't speak for the Speaker. If he doesn't understand that people can't afford their health insurance rates, then he's got a problem.
I'm not promising anybody anything. I'm going to let this process play out.
And that last comment, critical. The Speaker, Mike Johnson, making very clear there that he would not commit to any separate vote on the House floor on Obamacare subsidies, which is what Democrats have been demanding. So the question ultimately here, Dana, is whether or not Democrats will say, okay, we still need to reopen the government. We'll see what happens on health care, even if there's no guarantee that that can become law. And we require 8 Democrats in total to advance a bill to become law. Unclear if that will happen. But that's where the discussion is at this key moment here in the Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, that you're so right. That statement from House Speaker Mike Johnson was very telling, because I know I'm hearing and you're hearing as well that House Republicans are saying we can't deal with this. So you know who's going to have to give them cover? The President of the United States. We'll see if that happens in private or in public or both. Manu, thank you so much. Appreciate that great reporting. Up next.
But when we say the $1.5 trillion, that is the actual counter offer that they put on paper and filed in the Senate. It is still sitting over there as their counter proposal. $1.5 trillion in new spending on a 7-week stopgap funding measure. I mean, it's just madness. And included in that, yes, go read the bill. They want almost $200 billion to be returned to health care benefits for illegal aliens. They want to send all these billions of dollars back over to foreign countries for social spending in other countries. They wanted to restore $500 million to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. All these things. And in that proposal, amazingly, shockingly to us, they put it on paper. They want to repeal the $50 billion rural hospital fund that Republicans worked so hard to get signed into law July 4th. So it's just a mishmash of priorities and things that different Democrats are claiming. That illustrates the very point. This was never about one particular issue. They just wanted to show a fight. They wanted to look tough to the Marxist rise in their party. And remember this, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are both New Yorkers, right? We all just saw what happened in New York City. Mamdani is all the rage now, and the young communists are uprising, and that scares the old guard Democrats in Congress. And so they were afraid they'd get a challenge from a Mamdani disciple in their next election cycle. And
Mr. Speaker,
that is what all this is about.
Yeah. So here's what I think needs to happen without getting rid of the filibuster, because getting rid of the filibuster is a whole other conversation that honestly I don't want to have in this video. I do believe they're Democrats, at least from my understanding of the situation. They're Democrats who are willing to open up the government as long as there's a promise from Mike Johnson to have a vote on the House floor on the ACA subsidies, right? To have a vote on it. Now, Mike Johnson's basically saying, kick rocks. I am not going to promise you anything. Just open back up the government, which low-key is a position I respect. However, we're at the point now where, again, I think the government needs to be open back up. And Republicans can vote on it. And I think what they should do is that they should vote on it and figure out through reconciliation, how is it that they're going to reform Obamacare in order to lower costs, right? To help people out when it comes to their premiums, because that is a big deal. And if you let the Obamacare subsidies expire, then yes, people's premiums are going to rise. And that's going to hurt the GOP in the midterms. That's the unfortunate reality of politics. This is why it's hard to get rid of welfare. It's hard to get rid of subsidies, because when you get rid of welfare and you get rid of subsidies, in the immediate aftermath of that, again, people's costs, out-of-pocket costs are going to go up, right? Even though, again, people don't understand that their costs are actually going up because of the subsidies, because it's too much government. And through reconciliation, they need to figure out what they can do in the immediate future to provide some relief while they come up with a real healthcare plan. They're going to have to tackle this healthcare conversation, because the way that things are going with Obamacare, Democrats, the leftists, the socialists, they're going to win in the long run when it comes to their Medicare for all nonsense. Because if premiums continue to rise, it's going to get to the point where the American people are going to just say, screw it, just have the government pay for everything. And that's the last thing that we want. Republicans are going to have to actually deal with the issue of healthcare in this country. They're going to have to come up with something. They can't keep pushing it off. They're going to have to come up with something to compete with the socialists, because if they continue like this, if we just continue with business as usual with Obamacare, premiums are going to keep rising. You're going to have to keep subsidizing more of it. And it's going to get to the point where the government is going to be paying for all of it anyways, right? I mean, we're basically already there, right? We're basically almost there. Unless the GOP can actually do something about it, they're going to have to figure out how to navigate this. It's an issue that's going to continue to come up over and over and over again. Now, you know, they could pull the reverse Uno card on Democrats in the future, right? If they happen to ever get back power and control. But again, that's a long time in the future. Politicians need to start coming up with some permanent solutions, right? Some permanent things that we can do when it comes to this healthcare conversation. Republicans are stuck between a rock and a hard place because, again, Democrats have put us in this situation with their bad legislation, and now Republicans are the ones taking the blame for something that Democrats did. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of, again, socialism. That's the reality of welfare. When you got to take it away, when you got to reform it, it becomes controversial because nobody likes to have their welfare taken away. So, you know, I do believe that this is going to come to an end sooner rather than later. I just think that Republicans in the future have to be smarter about not putting themselves in this situation again. Because, I mean, to be honest with you, Democrats, they benefited from this. They benefited from it. And part of the reason why they benefited is because the GOP, they are the party in power. And because they're the party in power, they are taking the blame for a lot of stuff that's not really their fault. But again, that's politics. Because voters are dumb, right? I mean, let's be real. Democrat voters are dumb. Okay, more specifically. They're dumb, right? And then you got independents who are also uninformed, right? Low propensity voters. They don't know. They don't understand all the nuances and complexities of what's going on. All they know, well, Trump is in power, Republicans in power, my premiums are going up, my food stamps are going away, therefore it's the Republicans' fault, even though all of this is because of the Democrats and their shenanigans. So, we're going to see what happens, but yeah, this is getting to the point now where it's getting infuriating. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.